Heading over to the next page, we're now going to work with the BGL and the Killjoy Network one. We're going to do Killjoy Network first. So when it comes to the Killjoy Network logo, as you can see, it's already got color to it, and there's not a lot you can work with. I could add a shadow, I can do that, but it's not going to do much to it. So what I'm going to work with here is I'm going to work on customizing the colors of the actual logo. So what you do is you go to Image, Adjustments, you go to Replace Color. So fuzziness, have it on 100, right? And then have this one here. What you do is you just click a color that you want to change, right? And it will highlight every single time that color's been used. So let's say I want to customize the yellow, right? So that is now customized or got all the yellow in there. Okay, right. So I've already customized the yellow there. So I've got the color yellow here that I want. I've upped the fuzziness just so I make sure that I get all of the, all of the yellow I want. 100's a good way to go, and that's the way I'm going to go. And then you choose what color you want to change it to. So let's say I wanted this night to be the blue night, right? I can go to blue, and I can change it. And obviously, as you can see, that's not how I want it to be. So you up the fuzziness. I guess that'll do for now, yeah. Right, so, I've changed the yellow to the blue, right? Obviously, it's not the best different way of differentiating it, but it's the way that Photoshop provides. So, I've got that one sorted. So then I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color, and I'm going to go for this one here. I'm going to go 100 there. Okay, so I'm going to change this color, very common color that's been used, and I'm going to change this one to a nice silver. What one should we go for? Let's go for this one. So what I've done here is I've changed it to where it's like a silver blue sort of thing, which I'm not going to complain about. I'm pretty happy with that. So now I've got a blue silver lining, a lot different from the original logo. You can already tell it's customized. So and you can do this for loads of other stuff as well. And if you think oh, if there's any black, I want to change the black, but obviously we're not. We're working with this color, so we're working with that color. So that's done. So let's say I was like, I want to mess with this color now, right? Oh wait, hold on. Okay, right, sorry. So then you press save. No, you don't. Then you press OK. And then you go back to your image. You go back to adjustments, back to replace color. So I've done that. Now I've got my whites, right? So I'm going to want to change my white, mainly just because it's there, but it's not quite what I want. So let's say I wanted a dark red. No, that's not dark red. I don't understand what's going on there. Oh, I'm changing the wrong one. Okay, right. So let's say I wanted to change my whites. There we go. And let's say I wanted to change them to This is not going to plan. I think this is broken. Let me have a look. Fuzziness 100. So I've got my whites collected. Let's see. What is that? Yeah, I think on my version of Photoshop you can't edit black and white. However, to be honest with you, I think what we've done there, we've customized the logo. I've showed you how to edit colors, etc. So I'm pretty okay with that. So I'm not really going to complain. So we've edited the KN logo to more of a blue sort of night. Blue, grey, etc. Pretty good. And obviously, like all the other logos, if you want to, you can add a drop shadow. And you can take that to like 10. Change that to 90. Etc. Make it look a bit more better that way. But that's totally up to you. Okay, so next effect, we're going to be working on the BGL logo. So BGL logo is a bit different compared to the other ones. It's got a couple lines at the top, but it's quite similar to the KN logo. So you can see the resemblance between them. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on inner work. So working on the inner side of the logo. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the contour effect. Now you can do this. Now, as much, I've done it on plain colors before. You can do this on pretty much anything, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this. I'm going to turn that down, and I've already darkened, you know, the bottom of it. So if I up that, there we go. So what I've done, I don't want it, maybe 75 will do, there we go. So I've darkened the bottom part of the logo, and that's where, you know, that's where I'm going to leave it. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add an inner shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have distance 0, and what that does is it keeps everything going at the exact same length. I'm going to change this to 10, and I'm going to change this one to 25. There we go. So as you can see, if you were to look around the edges of this, you can see that it's got a bit of a shadow going inside of the logo. Obviously, you can mess with this if you want. You can add more of a choke, you know, add more size, etc. You know, that's all up to you if you want to do that or not. You can up the opacity to it, more darker. I think that's, you know, I'm probably actually going to tone down the opacity a bit, but it shows it's got an inner shadow. And if you add a stroke, no, don't add a stroke to this logo, but if you were to add a stroke, it would look a bit better than that. So I'm also just going to quickly add the drop shadow like I have all the other ones. No, not actually. Forget that. Okay, so I've added the inner part, I've added a bit of shading at the bottom, etc., right? But let's say I was like, you know what, I want to have it red at the bottom. You can do that. So what I've done is on my contour, I've added red. So the red is going up from the bottom. You can see I've used that here. It's changed it a little bit. This is another way to just edit logos is, you know, the inner shadow and using the contour, bevel and emboss effect on a logo itself with more than just one color. You know, it's got the swords, it's got the axe, it's got the text, it's got the flames, it's got what it needs, you know. So that's that. And also, if you were to do something like this with this type of logo, you can always add a color lookup. I'm going to use dark, crisp warm, just because I know how it works. You know, enhances the red aspect of it, makes it look a bit more darker as well. So a lot of the time when you're editing these logos, always feel free to, you know, add yourself, you know, more of it to it, because from what we had to begin with, this logo already looks like 10 times better. So it's always good to mess around with stuff like that, but don't go too overboard. That's the thing, you know, you can't expect to add everything to it because it just won't look good. Okay, now we're going to go over to the OTO and TXO logo. So these two logos are different colors, but we're going to do the same effects for both of them. So what I'm actually going to do then is I'm going to merge them. Okay, so I am going to, where is it? Merge layers. So I've got them both on the same one now, so even if I was to hide this layer, they're both there. So we're going to edit them both. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to image. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to, now this one, I'm not actually going to mess with anything here. I'm only going to be using the adjustments that Photoshop gives you. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a gradient map. I'm not going to use black and white. What I'm going to use is I'm going to want these to both be mainly based around blue. Right? Okay. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay. That didn't go to plan. Okay. Hold on. Give me a second. I think this is the right one. There we go. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it is. All right. So I'm going to say, you know what? I want them to look blue. It's not really pointing anything out, is it? So let's say I want to add a dark blue, right? So what this does, it changes the whole image to have that white blue effect, right? Obviously, I don't want it to be 100%, so I'm going to tone it down a little bit. But you can still see that the effect is there. It's only on 65% opacity for the gradient map, but it's there, right? So obviously, like all the other ones, I'm going to add the drop shadow, which makes it stand out from the behind. Okay, there we go. So I've added the drop shadow, etc., still got that effect. Now, let's say I didn't want to use a gradient map, so let's get rid of the gradient map for now. And let's say, you know what, let me just go straight in for the color lookup. So we're going to go for a couple. Crisp warm enhances the colors. So if I was to go back and forth from showing it and not showing it, this is without it, this is with it. The colors, the depth, the darkness, all enhances. You know, it looks a lot more HD, you know. Now let's say I wanted to change the color lookup to crisp winter, makes it a lot brighter, a lot more cold inside, you know. And I would use crisp winter when it comes to the Xfold One's logo, TXO. However, I would use crisp warm when it comes to the Outlast Your Position logo. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, exposure. So let's say we wanted to mess around with exposure a little bit. I would move the gamma correction up a bit. Now, as you can see, this kind of enhances the colors, a bit like crisp warm. Exposure, this brightens up the images, so a bit like crisp winter. So this is kind of messing with your own little color lookup. So I'm just going to do a bit of darkness. There we go. So I've darkened it now. It's a lot darker compared to you know, original, this, then color lookup, both of them at the same time. With that, obviously I wouldn't add that. Gradient map is only really good for when you're wanting to change your whole image effect. I'll show you some of that later. But yeah, so that's exposure, that's color lookup. Each one adds a different effect. I would advise messing around. Whenever I do anything Photoshop, whenever I make a profile picture or a banner, I always try and mess around with all the different stuff up here. Have a bit of fun with it, do what I want with it. Just because there is no reason to be so strict with yourself when it comes to messing around with the adjustments. Let's say I wanted to go black and white, turns them black and white. Sometimes black and white isn't that bad. If you want to mess with it, then mess with it. Because some images, people are like, I want it black and white, I want it grayscale, I want it old fashioned. And this is what you can do. Wouldn't add that. But if I was to add my exposure to it, you can see it adds more. Even when it's just black and white, it adds more. The same with the color lookup, it adds more, even when it's just black and white. To me, it adds more shading, more texture. That's what it does for me. Okay. So that's 4 of the many different ways that we can mess with, this type of stuff here. You can, brightness and contrast. You can enhance how bright the logos look. You can dim them as well. Especially with the TXO logo and the Outlast Your Position and the OTO one. If you were to really, go really dark, it enhances the way that the bright eyes would look, especially with the TXO one. Contrast, just another color one really, boost it up. So in essence, if you were to have contrast up, brightness down, that would really work with the Exiled Ones logo. Look, that looks really good. Right, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, Outlast Your Position doesn't look as good. So let's say I wanted to darken Outlast a bit, contrast, a bit more. There we go. That works a bit more for that one. But the TXO's one, 100%, loads of contrast, not so much brightness. It enhances the way the reds look, makes it look a bit more, fire. Cool. So let's say you want to mess around with vibrance as well. Obviously I've only got one selected at a time here. Saturation, I would never do too much, because if you do loads, it looks like a kid's TV program. If you do none, it takes away the color. So I would say always have +5, don't go any higher. Vibrance, again, just really a color enhancer. It kind of adds more to the colors you've got. Now, if you want, you could take away some of the vibrance, but add more saturation, which kind of enhances the less, or I guess the more brighter colors, which on the TXO one here, you can see it adds that. The same with the purple here on the OTO logo. So there's loads of different ways in which the adjustments that you get from Photoshop can help you. Levels, I wouldn't really use them, to be honest. Like, I've never really seen a point. I don't really get it. I think it's just weird. I've never used levels personally, so I wouldn't really do it. But other than that, if I was to do the vibrance I had, the brightness I had, with the color lookup I had, and the exposure, the TXO logo looks alright. But if we take away the exposure, the Outlast OTO one and the TXO one looks alright. So never be afraid to use more than one. There's many different ways in which you can use them. But yeah, that's how I would use the adjustments that the Photoshop gives you. So we've gone over what Photoshop gives you regarding, pre-made anything editing. You can do this to images as a whole, but we're just focusing on the logos here. We've gone over here, the bevel and emboss, the inner shadows. We've gone over the color lookups a little bit. With the KN logo, we went over the editing or customizing the colors of the logo, etc. You can do that with anything, and I'll show you some more of that in a bit. And then with the XGen logo, we've gone a lot over separating the logos if it's in 2 parts, and generally, making them look a whole lot cooler, So I hope this little bit that we've gone over helps, but I've got a couple more bits I want to show you. So here is a logo I've made before. So this is the OTO logo. Now, this isn't actually for a member or something like this. I was just messing around. And as you can see, I haven't actually got much here. I've got my background, which is quite easy, right? I've got this here, which is on a low opacity, just to add a bit more darkness to the background. I've then got the OTO logo, and all I've added is a beveled and embossed to add the darkness and the drop shadow. If we were to take the effects away, still looks alright, but the effects add so much more, especially to this logo, as you can see. Then I've just got the text, but we're mainly focusing on the logo here. Now, I customized the colors of the logo because I was going with a green theme. Now, this is what I mean. Edit the logo to the theme you're doing. That's what I would do, you know. Just edit it, have fun with it, you know, and I've done all that. And then I went, you know what, let's make the whole thing a whole lot better. And I added brightness, vibrance, and exposure. If we get rid of these, the image does not look good. It looks bland. There's no darkness to it. The colors don't even look that good. Then I added my brightness, which enhanced it a little bit. Then my vibrance, which really made the colors stand out. And then my exposure added so much depth to it. You know, it enhanced the shadows, enhanced the darker shading that I've added here. You know, if I get rid of that, there is none. If I add it, it's done there. And all that is literally a little tiny bit of what's it, the paintbrush on a really low opacity on black, just going around the outskirts. That's all it is, you know. And it makes the whole image and mainly the logo look a whole lot more beaming you in. You want to have a look at it. You get, I guess, what's the word? Appealing, more appealing to you. Okay, I've got another PFP here. This is one for an XGN member, and yeah. So as you can see, I've got the logo here, and I did separate it. You know, I separated the top. I worked with it. I added middle bit bright, top bit a bit darker, and then a lot of shading at the bottom, which you can see does a lot. There's an outward shadow, and then the skull itself as well. I didn't do anything with it. I just left it because you can do that. You know, you don't always have to edit every part of the logo. But as well as that, like the other ones we just went over with, I added my exposure. I added my color lookup. But if we were to get rid of all the effects I've done, this is what it would look like. Quite dark, you know, it's a bit more, not really bright orange, it's just a bit more like a browny sort of color, you know. Then I added all of my effects, my vibrance, my brightness, my color lookup, and my exposure, and it made the logo look a lot more better. And if you were to zoom out, it still looks good. And that's what you've got to think about, because when people wear a profile picture or a banner, sometimes it gets, you know, this is really big. Your profile picture won't appear like this size on a forum site, on Discord, on, you know, YouTube. So always make sure that if you were to make it smaller, it's readable. You know, the logo looks good. You know, there's loads of stuff we need to think about. Okay, last one I want to go over is this one here. So this is a bit of a different customization, which I didn't go over, which is whole logo customization. So what I actually had to do here is, let me just separate this off real quick. I had the XGen logo, you know, this one here, and I took out the skull and I added in the DVA logo from Overwatch. So I ended up adding the text and all that. And what this is a lot more in-depth customization of a logo. It's where you take away part of it and add your own effect. That can be with colors, that can be with anything like that. But you know, I changed it. You know, I took out the skull, I added the DVA logo, and it still represents Exiled Gaming Network because people, you know, not only is it here, but it's also there. You know, and the G is there. You know, it's there, but I added my own little bit. And this is something we do a lot in Exile Gaming Network, where we will change the skull of the logo to something else. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much been pretty much the video today, just customizing the logo. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, then please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on. This is my third video in a week. Obviously, the first one was just a little introduction, but I should be getting 2 videos out a week. One podcast and one Photoshop video. However, sometimes I might fall behind on one part of it, maybe the podcast, maybe the Photoshop video. But I hope you guys enjoy. I hope, you know, overall, this kind of helped you. You know, that's the whole purpose of it. And yeah, like, subscribe, you know, just feel the love from my channel. And yeah, I hope to see you guys at the next video, and let's get better at our let's get better at our Photoshop skills between us. Da-da-da. I also don't have an idea for next week's video. regarding Photoshop. I might do text. Tell me what you feel about it in the comments below. It will not be 3D text. It will be working with normal text because not everyone wants 3D, like this, for instance. Anyway, thank you guys. Hope you all have a great day. And yeah, love you all.